The reservation book at Le Bernardin showed the same name every May 8th for 79 years straight. Harold Chen, party of 4, then 3, then 2. This year, for the first time, it read Harold Chen, party of 1. The maitre d' had no idea he was about to make the biggest mistake of his career. Welcome back to our channel, where we uncover the stories that mainstream media won't tell you. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. You're about to witness something that will restore your faith in justice. Before we dive into what happened at Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant last Tuesday, I need you to do something. Write in the comments how old you are and what city you're from. Trust me, your answers will matter by the end of the story. Harold Chen had been planning this dinner for 6 months. At 92, planning anything 6 months ahead felt like tempting fate. But May 8th wasn't just any date. It was Victory in Europe Day, the day he and his squad celebrated surviving the Battle of the Bulge. The day they promised to meet every year at Le Bernardin, back when it was just a modest French bistro in a different neighborhood. For 7 decades, they'd kept that promise. 4 young soldiers became 3 middle-aged men, then 2 elderly veterans, and now just Harold, walking slowly through Manhattan with his dress uniform pressed and his Bronze Star polished. The same uniform he'd worn to each reunion dinner. The same medals he'd earned crawling through Belgian snow while fascists tried to kill him. Le Bernardin had changed. What started as a cozy restaurant where working-class heroes could afford a nice meal had transformed into a temple of culinary excess. 3 Michelin stars, reservations booked months in advance, wine lists that cost more than Harold's monthly Social Security check. But he'd called anyway, explained the tradition, explained about his fallen brothers. The hostess had been kind enough to honor the old reservation system, even offered to comp the meal for your service. Harold had politely declined. He'd always paid his own way. The young man in the $1,000 suit who greeted Harold at the door wasn't the same hostess he'd spoken with. This was someone new, someone who looked at Harold's uniform like it was a costume from a discount store. "Can I help you?" The tone suggested helping was the last thing on his mind. "Harold Chen, I have a reservation for 7 p.m. The maitre d', his nameplate read Sebastian, glanced at his tablet with theatrical confusion. "Chen? I don't see any Chen." He pronounced it wrong, deliberately. Harold had heard that mispronunciation his entire life. In basic training when drill sergeants assumed he was Japanese, in foxholes when new replacements wondered why a Chinaman was fighting for America, on job applications after the war when employers decided his last name made him unreliable. "It should be there," Harold said patiently. "Party of 1. Table by the window if possible." Sebastian's eyes swept Harold from head to toe. The uniform that had once commanded respect now looked shabby next to the designer clothing of other patrons. The medals that represented acts of courage under fire now seemed like trinkets from a war most people here were too young to remember. "Sir, I think there's been some confusion." Sebastian's voice carried the particular condescension reserved for the elderly and unwanted. Le Bernardin maintains certain standards. We serve clientele who appreciate fine dining, not... He gestured vaguely at Harold's appearance. "Whatever this is supposed to be." The restaurant buzzed with conversation from hedge fund managers and tech entrepreneurs. Men who'd built their fortunes on algorithms and derivatives while Harold's generation built the world they inherited. Women who spent more on handbags than Harold received in disability benefits for the shrapnel still lodged in his spine. "I've been coming here for 79 years, Harold said quietly. "Things change, old man." Sebastian's smile was sharp as broken glass. "We cater to people who actually built America, not those who held it back with their outdated ideas." The words hit harder than the German artillery in Bastogne. Harold had stormed beaches and liberated camps and helped rebuild Europe from rubble. He'd come home to build a family and work 40 years at the post office and pay his taxes and never ask for anything but the chance to honor his fallen friends once a year. "You smell like mothballs and failure," Sebastian continued, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "This establishment serves innovators, disruptors, people who matter in the modern world. Not relics from wars nobody remembers, A table of young executives in expensive suits turned to watch the show. One pulled out his phone, started recording. Another laughed into his wine glass. Entertainment for people who'd never fought for anything more challenging than a good table at their favorite restaurant. Harold stood there for 30 seconds that felt like 30 minutes. Around him, the restaurant continued its evening symphony of clinking glasses and casual conversation about stock options and real estate investments. None of these people had ever worn a uniform. None had ever stood between civilization and the darkness trying to destroy it. Hit that like button if this story got you hooked, because what happened next would remind everyone exactly who built the America they were living in. Harold turned without another word and walked toward the door. Behind him, Sebastian called out to the dining room, "Sometimes you have to clean house to maintain standards, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the disturbance." More laughter from the executive table. One of them, a man young enough to be Harold's great-grandson, raised his glass in mock salute. "Thanks for your service, Grandpa." The recording was already being uploaded to social media with captions like, "What have old boomer gets owned at fancy restaurant," and "When boomers try to use the victim card." The tech bro who posted it had 50,000 followers eager for content that confirmed their worldview. But Marcus Rodriguez, busboy at Le Bernardin and history major at NYU, wasn't laughing. He'd watched the entire encounter while clearing tables, and something about the old man's dignity under humiliation reminded him of his own grandfather's stories about Korea. When his shift ended at midnight, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He'd been recording too, but his video told a different story. Harold Chen rode the subway home to his studio apartment in Queens, the Bronze Star heavy against his chest. The train car was nearly empty at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. Just Harold and a few late commuters scrolling through their phones, unaware they were sitting next to a man who'd helped save the world. At home, Harold hung his uniform carefully in the closet next to 3 other uniforms, one for each friend he'd lost over the years. Tommy Kowalski, heart attack in 1987, Ray Murphy, cancer in 2003, Jimmy Santos, COVID in 2020. Each death had made the annual dinner smaller, but Harold had never missed one. Until tonight. He sat at his kitchen table with a cup of instant coffee and opened the photo album he brought out every May 8th. Black and white pictures of 4 young soldiers grinning at the camera in a bomb-damaged French cafe, 1945. The same 4 faces at Le Bernardin in 1983, older but still laughing. Then 3 faces in 1988, 2 in 2004. Just Harold in every photo after 2020. His phone buzzed. A text from his granddaughter Ashley in California. "Grandpa, did you go to your special dinner tonight? How was it?" Harold stared at the message for 10 minutes before typing back, "Rain check this year, sweetheart. Maybe next time." But there wouldn't be a next time. At 92, Harold knew this had been his last chance to honor the tradition, his last chance to sit at that window table and raise a glass to Tommy and Ray and Jimmy and tell them about another year of freedom they'd died protecting. What would you do in our hero's place? While Harold sat alone with his memories, Marcus Rodriguez was uploading his own video. But Marcus had done something Sebastian's privileged customers hadn't. He'd researched the old man in the uniform. The internet made finding information easy if you knew where to look. Marcus started with the Bronze Star visible on Harold's jacket and worked backward through military databases and newspaper archives. What he found made his blood boil. Sergeant Harold Chen, 82nd Airborne Division, Normandy Invasion, June 6, 1944. Battle of the Bulge, December 1944. Liberation of Ohrdruf concentration camp, April 1945. Purple Heart for wounds received in combat. Bronze Star for gallantry in action. 2 Silver Stars for valor above and beyond the call of duty. The old man Sebastian had humiliated wasn't just a veteran, he was a goddamn war hero. Marcus's video went live at 2 a.m. with a simple caption, "This is Harold Chen. While rich kids played dress up tonight at Le Bernardin, this man was being thrown out for not meeting standards. Here's what those standards should actually be." The video included Harold's military record, photos from his service, and the historical context Sebastian's customers were too ignorant to understand. It explained how Chinese American soldiers faced discrimination even while fighting fascism, how Harold's generation built the economic prosperity that created the wealth being flaunted at that restaurant. By 6 a.m., the video had 100,000 views. By noon, it was trending on 3 platforms. By evening, every major news outlet in New York was calling Le Bernardin for comment. Sebastian Morrison Blake, his full name revealed through LinkedIn stalking, was the son of a hedge fund manager and grandson of a Supreme Court justice. He'd never held a job that didn't come through family connections, never faced adversity more challenging than choosing between his BMW and his Mercedes, never contributed anything to society beyond optimizing profit margins for the already wealthy. The contrast was devastating. A war hero humiliated by a trust fund baby who wouldn't last 5 minutes in the situations Harold had survived for months. But the story was just beginning to unfold, because Sebastian had made one crucial error. He'd chosen the wrong old man to humiliate. The first call came to Le Bernardin at 7:15 a.m., then 10 more by 8 a.m. By 9 a.m., the phone was ringing constantly. Restaurant reservations being canceled, corporate sponsors pulling support, food critics demanding explanations. Chef Eric Dubois, the restaurant's owner, had built his reputation on excellence and respect for tradition. Learning that his maître d'hôtel had thrown out a Yobo 140 veteran sent him into a rage that could be heard 3 blocks away. "You did what?" Dubois screamed at Sebastian in front of the entire morning prep staff. "You humiliated a Bronze Star recipient? In my restaurant?" Sebastian tried damage control. "Sir, you don't understand. The old man didn't fit our demographic. Our clientele expects to dine in a restaurant that honors the men who died so they could make their fortunes in freedom." Dubois was French, but he understood American history better than the privileged brat standing before him. "That man stormed the beaches my grandfather couldn't defend. Show me one person eating here last night who sacrificed anything for this country." The video had evolved beyond social media. CNN picked it up. Fox News ran it hourly. The Today Show called it a national disgrace. Veterans organizations were organizing boycotts. Politicians were issuing statements. But the most powerful response came from an unexpected source. General Patricia Williams, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, had seen the video while reviewing morning briefings. She'd also done her own research on Harold Chen. What she found in classified military files made her pick up the phone. "Get me the president," she told her aide. While Washington mobilized, Harold Chen was trying to understand why his phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, veterans groups, his granddaughter crying about a video she'd seen, his neighbor explaining something about the internet, and Sebastian and Le Bernardin being canceled. Harold didn't understand social media, but he understood that his private humiliation had become public knowledge. The thought mortified him more than Sebastian's insults had. "I just wanted dinner with my friends," he told Ashley when she called for the 5th time. "I didn't want to be anyone's cause." But Harold Chen had never gotten to choose his battles. At 19, the Army chose Normandy. At 20, they chose the Bulge. At 92, the internet chose Le Bernardin. The restaurant's Yelp page collapsed under thousands of 1-star reviews. Google ratings plummeted. Reservation systems crashed. Corporate partners severed contracts. The stock price of Le Bernardin's parent company dropped 12% in a single day. Sebastian Morrison Blake found himself unemployed by noon, his termination video viewed by more people than had ever heard his name. His LinkedIn profile became a cautionary tale about privilege and ignorance. His family's social standing evaporated faster than their financial contributions could rebuild it. But the real earthquake was still coming. At 3 p.m. Eastern, President Martinez made an unscheduled appearance in the White House press room. Standing beside him was General Williams and a full honor guard. "Ladies and gentlemen," the president began, "it has come to our attention that one of America's greatest heroes was dishonored yesterday evening in New York City. This will not stand. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next, because what the president announced would shock the entire nation." Sergeant Harold Chen will be my personal guest at the White House tomorrow evening for a state dinner in his honor. General Williams will present him with the Medal of Honor he should have received 79 years ago, but was denied due to the racial prejudices of that era. The press room erupted, questions flew, cameras flashed, but the president wasn't finished. Furthermore, Le Bernardin restaurant will be hosting a dinner this Saturday evening exclusively for Webby Wood veterans and their families, completely free of charge. Chef Dubois has personally guaranteed that every surviving member of the greatest generation in the New York area will be invited to experience the respect they deserve. What do you think the antagonist deserves? Sebastian Morrison Blake would spend the rest of his life learning the answer to that question. Saturday evening, Le Bernardin looked different. Gone were the hedge fund managers and tech entrepreneurs. In their place sat 37 Mbapu veterans, some in wheelchairs, some with oxygen tanks, all wearing their uniforms with pride. Their families filled the remaining tables, children and grandchildren who finally understood what their elders had sacrificed. Harold Chen sat at the window table he'd requested, but he wasn't alone. The restaurant had tracked down photos of Tommy Kowalski, Ray Murphy, and Jimmy Santos, displaying them on stands at the 3 empty chairs. For the first time in 3 years, Harold's annual dinner included all 4 members of his squad. Chef Dubois personally served each veteran, explaining every dish, thanking them individually for their service. The meal was perfect. The wine was exceptional. The conversation was the kind that can only happen between people who've shared the deepest experiences life can offer. But the most remarkable moment came at 9 p.m., when Harold stood to offer the traditional toast he'd given every year since 1945. To Tommy, who saved my life in Normandy. To Ray, who carried wounded men through Belgian snow. To Jimmy, who liberated camps and never spoke about what he saw there. To all the brothers who didn't make it home. Every person in the restaurant stood, veterans, families, staff, even the busboys who'd stayed late to witness history. The toast was repeated at every table, glasses raised to honor sacrifice that transcended wealth, status, or social media followers. Sebastian Morrison Blake watched the dinner from his studio apartment in Brooklyn, unemployed and unemployable, scrolling through videos he would never live down. Harold Chen dined at the finest restaurant in New York, surrounded by the respect he'd earned 80 years ago and finally received at 92. The reservation book at Le Bernardin now shows Harold Chen, Party of 4, every May 8th in perpetuity, with a brass plaque by the window table reading, "Reserved for heroes who built America."